Hi, and thanks for joining. If you're new here, my name is Wendy and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at places like garage sales, thrift stores, anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Today's video is going to be what sold for November 19th through 25th. Let's dive in. The first thing that sold was 3 one-of-a-kind original watercolor paintings by an artist named Joyce Gilbert. These are paintings that we used to sell in another business that we own, which is a custom picture frame shop, and we no longer sell artwork, so our reselling business has acquired all of that stock and is selling it. She had a whole series of satirical paintings. They were like miniature paintings called Neiman's Outhouse, as in Neiman Marcus and Outhouse, so I think you can see what the satire was, and those have been really popular. I think these are the last 3 to sell. I can't remember for sure, but we've sold multiples of these, and then these last 3 or these 3 sold to a single buyer. These sold for $57.97. Next up was a vintage lot of 3 packages of holiday paper gift tags. We found these in the Goodwill bins. I wasn't sure if they would sell. I was like, I don't know if vintage gift tags would sell or not, but we picked them up and decided to give them a try. They sold for our full asking price of $24.99, so I probably would pick them up if I saw them again. Next up was one of the vintage Francoma pieces. This was a divided serving dish. We got a bunch of Francoma at a garage sale for a really cheap price. We paid 75 cents per piece, and this piece sold for $31.98, and that was on offer to buyer. And actually that brings me to a quick complaint I want to make about the eBay mobile app that I'm experiencing. And I kind of have to give a little bit of information about how we do our offers to buyers first, because I have always made an offer to buyer and I always end those offers to buyers in the number 8. And so like this one was $31.98. So I'll decide based on how old the item is, how much of a percentage off I want to offer. I'll figure out what that percentage calculates to, and then I will round either up or down to the nearest number that ends in 8. And the reason why I do that is because it allows me to easily track at a glance of our spreadsheet how many sales we had through the sales method of offer to buyer that week or that month or that year, or however method I'm looking at it. And it helps me to just get a big picture look at our business and how that method is working for us. So recently I've noticed that eBay has made an update to their mobile app that has changed my ability to do a custom dollar amount when I'm doing an offer to buyer. If it's just a single, if I just have a single offer to send, I can still do it as a customized dollar amount on the mobile app. But if there are multiple offers to send, the only way I can send offers now is with a percentage off, which is extremely frustrating because I can't customize it to end in an 8 unless I go to my PC to do it. And that's extremely frustrating to me because I always send offers right when they become available, because that's when the buyer is shopping, that's when they're in the buying mood, and I want to strike when the iron is hot in that regard. So I've always just looked on my phone just kind of all day long, refresh to see when offers become available and send them in that moment. And now I'm having to stop what I'm doing, get up, go to my PC and send them from there. So that's extremely frustrating. I have submitted a comment to eBay about that to hopefully get them to change it back or make it a little bit more customizable. So let me know your thoughts about that if you're experiencing any issues with the new format for offers to buyers in the mobile app as well. Okay, moving on. The next item that we sold was a pair of women's Nike Flyknit athletic running shoes. We got these at a garage sale for $5. They sold immediately for our full asking price of $39.99. Next up was an Xbox 360 game. This was Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Fate of Two Worlds. We got this at a garage sale for $1 and it sold very, very quickly for $10.44. That was our full asking price minus a sale that we were running this month. Next up was a vintage Esprit women's cardigan sweater. We got this a long time ago at an estate sale for $5.12, and I recently accepted a low offer on that because we've had it in our store for a long time and I was just trying to clear it out. And that was purchased for $25. Next up was a unopened package of Cobra Hero Series Police SWAT Blue Camo Walkie-Talkies. We got these at a garage sale for $5 and they sold for $18 even on best offer. Next up was a textbook. This was called Strategic Management Text and Cases. We got this at a garage sale for $1 and it sold for $59.99. Next up was a men's Harley Davidson sweater. It had embroidery down the sleeve. We got this at a rummage sale for $3.25 and this sweater sold fast for $28.50 on best offer. Next up was another Harley Davidson item. This was a vintage sweatshirt. We got this at an estate sale for $5 and it sold immediately on offer to buyer for $28.98. Next up was a pair of the Barbie yellow shoes. We got a big Ziploc bag of Barbie shoes at the Goodwill bins once, and they've just, been selling on a regular basis since we got that. We paid 61 cents for these and they sold for $9.34. Next up was a Nike toddler track jacket. It did have a little stain on it, so we did disclose that. We got this out of a storage unit for 23 cents and it sold for $13.99. That was our full asking price. Next up was a men's SSLR Hawaiian button-up shirt. This we got out of the Via Trading box that we got. I'll link that video down below if you want to see us unbox that. We did a partnership with Via Trading, so that was super fun. This shirt sold for $22.99, and interestingly enough, it went to Hawaii. Next up was a compact Bible. It was a turquoise Bible in faux leather, very pretty Bible. This we got at a thrift store for $1.35 and it sold for $12.99. Next up was a sweater that belonged to me. This was a women's small black mock turtleneck bishop sleeve tight knit sweater. Lots of keywords on that one. Like I said, this was mine. I bought it on eBay many years ago, wore it for a long time, and it sold for our full asking price of $15.99. So we were happy about getting a full price sale, but everything else with this sale went badly. I woke up a couple days ago. Well, let me set the stage actually on this whole sale, because every night right before we go to bed, we ship out any last minute orders, we check eBay, send out offers, respond to any offers that we've received, make sure there's no questions from buyers, and just kind of wrap up any last minute tasks with eBay. And this night I had gone to bed at about 11 o'clock. When I woke up the next morning, and I don't remember exactly what time it was, but it was the next morning, I saw that there were a couple of messages from the person who purchased this sweater. And the first message was pretty intense. It said, I received the sweater and opened the package and it had an overwhelmingly bad smell when I opened it. And then it was kind of an accusatory type message. I don't remember exactly what it said. If I still have the message, I'll include a copy here, but it said something like, you should do a better job of making sure the item is, ready to be sent out when you send it. And I was like, well, this was my sweater, so I knew it didn't smell like of smoke or anything like that, and that it was laundered before we sent it. So I could not imagine what kind of bad smell she would be referring to. Then there was another message immediately after, and it said that she wanted to clarify that the item actually did not have a bad smell, like a body odor smell, but instead smelled of a strong perfume scent, which apparently she didn't like. And I was like, well, I don't wear perfume, so it would not be a perfume, and it was freshly laundered. We do use like a laundry scent booster, like the little downy beads. I call them laundry nerds. So that's probably what it was. So I did respond to her at that point and said, I'm so sorry that there was an issue with your purchase. We do use a laundry scent booster. I'm sorry if that was offensive to you, but the good news is we offer free returns. You can send the item back free of charge for a full refund. And then I went on about my day, but a few minutes later I noticed that she had already left us a negative feedback. Now, another thing I'll mention is that the messages that we received from her in our inbox were received at like 11:54 and 11:55 p.m. I don't know when the feedback was left. You can't actually tell that, but the feedback stated, and unfortunately I don't have a screenshot of it, but I do remember almost exactly what it said. Probably not, to the T, but pretty close. It said, "I washed the sweater 2 times and it still smells bad. Gonna need a refund." I know she used the word bad, and I know she said gonna need a refund, and I was like, well, I found that very suspicious that just in the span of an overnight period, she had time to wash the sweater twice, and she didn't take the time to reach out to me about getting a return set up or anything like that. And I was like, we're gonna get this feedback removed. So I reached out to the buyer again, and I stated, "I now see that you have left negative feedback. I am going to send you a feedback revision request since we do offer free returns. Maybe you were not aware of that, but I'm informing you again. You can send the item back at no cost to you and get all of your money back." I reminded her that we also had free shipping, so that she would be out no money, and that we would be happy to give her money back for any reason. And we were sorry that she had an issue with her purchase. And I put a gentle reminder in there about how damaging negative feedback can be for small eBay businesses, and that this is how we earn money for our family, and that we would really appreciate it if she would consider revising her feedback. Of course, we did not hear anything back from her after sending that. And at that point, I also went in and responded to the feedback on my feedback page. And I would recommend always responding with only facts and no emotion if you have to respond to negative feedback. But what I said was, "I'm sorry you did not like the smell of our laundry scent booster. As stated in our messages to you, we offer free returns, and you are welcome to return the item for any reason for a full refund." And I left it at that. It was completely factual, gave a future buyer a very good picture of what our customer service looks like, and gave them more information, because I felt it was extremely unfair that she said it smelled bad when she later clarified in messages that it smelled of a perfumed scent. So I felt like that needed to be clarified. At that point, then, I went onto eBay for Business through Facebook and sent them a very carefully worded message about my experience with the buyer. I made sure to mention that she reached out at 11:54 p.m., then left the feedback at some point during the night, claiming to have washed the item 2 times, and did not take advantage of our free returns, and was demanding a refund in her feedback. And I just made sure and stated the facts only, and I said in the message to eBay, "Would you consider removing the feedback, since we have gone above and beyond to make sure this buyer has had the most exceptional customer service experience from us, but she is not taking advantage of free returns and is insisting on having a refund." And at that point, I also went onto the eBay website and requested a feedback removal using the feedback removal tool. So then I waited, and at that point I did not hear back from the buyer. I did not hear back from anybody, but a few hours later I heard back from the eBay removal request, and it was declined. And all it said was it does not meet the criteria for removal, which in my opinion that was not true. So I didn't give up at that point. I still had that message out to eBay for Business, and at that point I went on to Help and Support and attempted to request a phone call. It was extremely hard to request a phone call. I will say that it is way too hard to get in contact with eBay support now. I had to do so many clicks and finagle the system in so many different ways to finally get it to call me. It just kept trying to tell me to email eBay, and that was extremely frustrating. So eBay, if you ever watch this, it should not be that hard for an eBay seller to get in contact with support. But I was finally able, after about 10 minutes, to do the right number of clicks in the right order and do the right magical number of things on the screen to get an eBay rep to call me back, and someone named Charles called me back, and he was very, very polite, but we had a very scripted conversation where he reinforced what I was told by the request through the website, and my request to have the feedback was once again declined by him. At that point, I did not give up again. I requested to chat with someone, which was also very difficult. I had to do many clicks and work very hard to get the system to allow me to chat, but I finally made it work, and I chatted with someone who also very politely and very scriptfully told me no. So at that point I was beginning to lose hope, but I still had the eBay for Business option available to me, and I had not heard back from them, so I just decided to sit back and wait. And a few hours later, I got a request from them to verify my account through the Facebook messaging. So I did that, I verified my account, and then after I did that, I heard back from them that they were going to remove the feedback and that it met the criteria, and they sent a copy of eBay's feedback removal policy, which I read, and in my opinion, it met the criteria because she was abusive and she was insisting on a refund despite not having contacted me prior and despite not having taken advantage of all of the customer service options that we had made available to her. So my point is that if you get a negative feedback, and if and only if it is unfair, do not give up. You may have to go through multiple customer service reps, but hopefully you'll eventually get to somebody who will really listen to the story and really take the facts into consideration and remove the feedback for you. But I'll also say, if you do end up with a negative feedback on your account like we have in the past, your best bet is to very non-emotionally and factually respond to that so that future buyers see what kind of customer service you offer and that you're not going to respond to a customer who has an issue in an angry or emotional way. So that's my best advice there. I do think that the eBay system with feedback is skewed to help buyers and is not fair for sellers, because I do not think that a buyer should be able to even leave negative feedback without having opened a return request, especially if a seller offers free returns. In my opinion, if a seller offers free returns, a buyer should be required 100% to open a return request before they are able to leave negative feedback. That is not fair at all for a seller who is doing absolutely everything to provide the most top-notch customer service. And then on top of it, as sellers, we are only able to leave positive feedback for buyers. So future sellers dealing with that buyer have no ability to get a clear picture of what a seller's experience is with that buyer. However, I did note that if you go and check her feedback left for others, which is only available on a PC, she has left 5 negative feedbacks and 6 neutral feedbacks for other sellers in the last 6 months. So that can give you a picture of what a buyer's feedback history is with a seller, which was not helpful to me in this purchase because she just bought it outright at full price. But when receiving offers, you can go in and check that feedback, and that can help you make an informed decision about it, whether or not it's somebody you want to do business with. So anyway, that is a lot of information about that one sale, but you know, I feel like it's important information to share. All right, let's move on. The next item that sold was one of the IKEA 15-inch Allgot pull-out basket drawer rails. These were new in the package. We got a big bulk lot of them at the thrift store. We paid $1.35 for each of them. This one sold for $14.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a vintage Black & Decker white space maker coffee maker. We found this at an estate sale. It was actually mounted on the cabinet, and we asked them if we could take it down. They said yes. We paid $10 for it, and it sold immediately for $68 plus $20 shipping. Buyer was all in for $88. Next up was a pair of women's True Religion black velvet skinny jeans. We paid way too much for these at the thrift store. We paid $16.14 quite a long time ago. I was thinking that they would sell for higher and quicker, and neither happened. They eventually sold for $38.49. We were just glad to get them out the door. Next up was a set of 2 hand-painted, they were called Christmas Holiday Snowman Coals. They were signed by an artist named M. Glass. They were just rocks painted to look like Christmas coal. They were really cute, but they were mine. I just didn't want them anymore. They were gifted to me a long time ago, so I had no cost. They sold for $26.99. That was our full asking price. Next up was a vintage mid-century modern Jasco hot plate food warming tray. This we got at a garage sale for $2.40. I think it was a garage sale where we did a bulk buy. And this sold for $37.99. Next up was a Primeline 5-inch self-adhesive paintable white doorknob and wall shield. It was new old stock. We got this out of a storage unit. We decided to list it because our cost of goods was low. This was an easy list, an easy store, and an easy ship. And those kinds of things, if we already own them, when we purchase them at a place like a storage unit, we'll generally list those. We paid 23 cents for this item out of the storage unit, and it sold for $8.99. Next up was a lot of 2 Axel and Beast youth fiction paperback books. I just noticed I put in the title paper books. I think that was a typo. We found these in the Goodwill bins for $1.18, and they sold for $12.99. Next up was a vintage 1982 Cabbage Patch Kid preemie doll. I think it did have some staining on it. I have the word read in the title. We got this at a garage sale for $1, and it sold for $22.38. Next up was a Ralph Lauren women's black faux wrap jersey knit dress. We got this at a garage sale for $2, and it sold for $47.99. Next up was a Sunbeam Renew extra large back electric heating pad. It was brand new in the box. We got it at a estate sale for $5, and it sold immediately for $28, and it was purchased as a Christmas gift. Next up was another Ralph Lauren item. This was a men's black and gray houndstooth sport coat. This we got at a thrift store for $6.94, and it sold for $37.99. Next up was an Elf on the Shelf 8-inch replacement red PVC music box hide and seek game Elf only. So this was a board game replacement piece. We found this in the Goodwill bins for 67 cents, and it sold for $11.04. Next up was a Disney hot pink velour Minnie Mouse ears Santa hat. We got this gifted to us to sell by a family member, so we had no cost, and it sold for $15 even on best offer. Next up was a 2-pack of MAM bottles and pacifiers. They were new in the package. We got these at a garage sale for $2, and they sold for $11.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a pair of Diamond J by Justin women's kilty black leather lace-up roper boots. We got these at the flea market for $3, and they sold for $52.99. That was our full asking price. Next up was a Gospel Series VHS. It was new and sealed. It was called Rivers of Joy by Bill and Gloria Gaither. We got this at the thrift store for 13 cents, and it sold for $18.04. Next up was 2 Chick-fil-A kids meal toys. They were called Klutz Build-A-Books. We got these at a garage sale for 40 cents, and they sold for $11.18 on offer to buyer. Next up was a CD by an artist called Yuri. It was new and sealed, but it did have a crack in the case. We included that information right in the title. We got this at the Goodwill bins for 67 cents, and it sold for $18 even on best offer. Next up was an 18 by 24 limited edition and numbered print signed by an artist named M. Willib. We got this from the other business that we own, and it sold for $27.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a Stereo Spectacular Demonstration and Sound Effects 1962 vinyl. We have found that sound effects media of any kind will sell. Not always for a lot, but it generally sells. So if we can get it for a cheap enough price, we will pick it up. This we found at a thrift store for 52 cents and it sold for $10.38 on offer to buyer. Next up was a 1986 complete 12-year issue set of Popular Mechanics magazine. We got this at a garage sale where everything was free, so we had no cost, and this set sold for $36 even. Next up was a Pioneer tabletop monitor TV stand for a 50-inch display. It was new in the box. We got this at a thrift store for $6.48 and it sold for $159.99. Next up was a women's paisley scarf. We got this from a purchase that we made on Facebook Marketplace. I bought like 6 garbage bags of clothes for like $50. That was a great deal. Each of the items in those bags broke down to just 67 cents a piece. And this scarf sold for $17.98. Next up was 10 spare parts from the Polly Pocket Race and Splash set and other mermaid play sets. Most of these belong to my daughter, but we probably also found some in thrift store toy bags and places like that. But I have listed on here my cost at $0, so probably the majority of them were my daughter's. These sold for $12.68 on offer to buyer. Next up was a 2018 McDonald's Happy Meal figure. It was a My Little Pony Fluttershy. We got this out of a thrift store toy bag for 18 cents and it sold for $7.64. Next I'm going to go over all of the collectible cards that sold from my husband's personal collection. The first one was a Magic the Gathering Unlimited card. This was a sinkhole card that sold for $24.99. And next was a 1989 Donruss Randy Johnson card. This one sold on Mercari for $2.43. And that wraps up everything that we sold this particular week, so let's go over our totals. This week we sold 43 items for an average sale price of $28.70. Our sales totaled $1,233.91 for a net profit of $652.38. So that wraps up everything for this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you made it this far, it probably means that you enjoyed it, so consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell turned on. And please let me know in the comments below if you're having any issues with sending offers on the mobile app, or if you've had any issues having a feedback removed in the past. Thanks so much for joining, and I'll catch you on the flip side.